Hello, Ready Associates. Today we're going to walk through how to fill out the TXR Addendum for sale of other property by buyer. That's Form 1908. Sometimes we call it the Contingency Addendum. It's the form to use when your buyer needs to sell their current home in order to purchase a new one. First, let's start at the top of the form. You'll see a blank to put a property address. This is for the new property your buyer wants to buy. Make sure to include the street address, city, state, and zip code. Now let's move to paragraph A. This is the heart of the addendum. First blank, fill in the complete address of the buyer's current property that needs to be sold. Again, include street address, city, state, and zip code. The second blank is where you'll insert the contingency deadline date. This is the date by which the buyer must receive proceeds from their home's sale. If the buyer's home is already under contract, then you could use that close date or a few days after for some wiggle room with regards to closing and funding. If your buyer's home is not under contract, then you'll have to use an educated guess. You'll have to pick a date far enough in advance to allow your buyer's current home to sell, but not far enough out that the sellers won't accept the contract. Pay attention to the notice that follows. This date should be no later than the closing date specified in paragraph 9 of the 1-to-4 family contract for the new property. Paragraph B deals with what happens if the seller gets another offer. Buyer must waive the contingency on or before the blank day after seller's notice to buyer. Otherwise, the contract terminates and buyer gets the earnest money back. Fill in the number of days the buyer has to waive their contingency after being notified that the seller has received a backup offer. Common timeframes are 1 to 3 days. In paragraph C, there's one key blank. Buyer may waive the contingency only by notifying seller of the waiver and depositing X amount with escrow agent as additional earnest money. Fill in the dollar amount of additional earnest money the buyer must deposit if they choose to waive their contingency. This is where your earnest money strategy becomes critical. When using this addendum, structure your earnest money in 2 parts. Number 1, initial earnest money from the main contract, paragraph 5A. Keep this amount modest, maybe 0.25% of the purchase price up to 0.5%. This shows good faith but limits your buyer's risk during the contingency period. If the contingency isn't satisfied, this gets refunded. You want to protect your buyer's money? Remember, you're a fiduciary. Number 2, additional earnest money. This addendum, paragraph C. This should be the remaining amount, the other 3/4 or 0.5%, depending on what you put for initial earnest money. This is only deposited if your buyer chooses to waive their contingency. For example, if your contract price is $400,000, you might structure it as $1,000 initial earnest money and $3,000 additional earnest money if the contingency is waived, for a total of $4,000 when the deal becomes firm. This strategy protects your buyer during the contingency period while still demonstrating serious commitment to the seller once the contingency is removed. Finally, don't forget the signature section at the bottom. Make sure all parties sign in the right spot. Remember, this addendum protects buyers who need to sell their home before they buy a new one, but it also comes with risks. Make sure your clients fully understand both the protection it provides and the obligations it creates. Now let's talk about what happens when or if the sellers get a backup offer. Form 1912 is the notice sellers will give to the buyers when they get a backup contract. The buyers can respond on the same form. Let's take a look. This form is essentially a fish or cut bait notice that forces the buyers to make a decision. Think of it like this. By using a contingency, the buyers have basically said, "We'll buy your house if we can sell ours first." Now someone else wants to buy the same house, so the seller is saying to the buyers, either commit right now or we need to move on to the other offer. The listing agent will fill out this top portion with seller and buyer name and the address of their property. Then the seller will sign it and send to the buyers for their response. The buyers must choose one of 2 options in response. Option 1 means the buyers are all in. The buyers waive the contingency and deposit their additional earnest money. What this really means is that the buyers are buying that house whether or not they sell theirs. Or the buyers can choose option 2, which means they're out. Oftentimes, this is their only choice, as most people don't have enough money to buy one house without selling one first. So buyers will check box 2, the contract will terminate, and they'll get their earnest money back. Hope this video helped increase your understanding of how to work real estate contracts with contingencies. The Contingency Addendum can be a good tool, and it has paved the way to many closed transactions.